I feel that especially right now, like we're a good 10 years into the future of work since since the phrase future of work first came out, which would probably be the
Yeah.
early, 2010s. Um, Ernst and Young and, McKinsey and everybody and anybody who's significant has been researching this. World Economic
Yeah.
Forum. Like if you put the
Yeah.
word, future of work, you're going to get so many studies done on it. All right. So for the average professional out there, there is a lot of information out there. And a lot of the information will focus on a couple of different things. And this is where I will reiterate them if you like. My
Yeah.
first
Please go ahead.
observation is that
Yeah.
most of us were raised in the environmental era, sorry, in the industrial era,
Yeah.
focused very much on knowledge. So the
Mm.
careers that did very well were the careers where you knew facts and you were able to bring them out at the right in conversation at the right time. So if you look at a
Mm.
really good lawyer, it's someone who's able to quote a case in the appropriate context at the right time in argument
Yeah.
in court. If you look at a doctor, it's someone who's able to tie together all the right pieces of a diagnosis and bring it together at the right time and to be able to make
Yeah.
that impact. Um, and a lot of that is still true.
Mm.
Most
Mm.
of us who have grown up into the middle sector careers, that's what we focused on, learning a lot. But the internet
Yeah.
came along and democratized knowledge. It really, now all the knowledge that you went to school to study is available online. And what you need to do is figure out how to ask. Asking the right
Yes.
question has now become what is most important, not what you know,
Mm.
but
Yeah.
asking the right questions so you can get the right answers. So that's number
Mm.
one. But what it's
Yeah.
also done is it's taken knowledge skills and shrunk the shelf life of it. So if you look at anything that is knowledge based, I mentioned at the beginning that I graduated as a computer science and math graduate.
Yeah.
On the computer science side, it was COBOL, Pascal, Fortran, right? You don't even hear those names anymore. I can
No,
say
not
on
at all.
paper that I'm a computer grad, like I'm a computer science graduate, but all
Yeah.
those have now shrunk out of existence. And so I want to use that in your mindset when you think about a rapidly decaying shelf life of knowledge. It's the stuff that you're working with. So much of it is already out of date by the time you leave university. When your average person is working in the office, they want to think about the tasks that they're doing. How much of it is knowledge based that is rapidly shrinking and no longer going to be pertinent 3 years from now? And how much of it is process based, which is still going to
Mm.
stay in place? So I want you to
Mm.
start thinking in those two terms. It's like what is rapidly shrinking and what is
Mm.
persistent. In
Mm.
language, we've come to think of these as the IQ skills and the EQ skills.
Yes.
And what you will start seeing with that framework and with that filter on as you start reading all the research that you have on the future of work as the average professional out there, you'll begin to see that there's a heavier focus on the EQ skills. Why? Because
Yeah.
they're more
Mm.
persistent. The
Yeah.
IQ is aging out, but the EQ is staying there.
And when you say persistent, it means this is something that you'll find usable, whether now or in the future, whether you're a lawyer or a doctor, whether you're an accountant or a pastor. This is something that you'll find useful. And when you say EQ, you mean emotional intelligence, just to bring it
Yes.
to life. Okay, cool.
Yes.
Thank
And
you.
and so now to actually bluntly explain that, so this is actually one place where I think I differentiate myself from a lot of people who talk about the future of
Yeah.
work. When I say I talk
Yeah.
about it with families. Like I said, as I started viewing this world, I also started looking at it from the viewpoint of a parent. And typically a parent comes in and assists their child saying, okay, this is the map, right? This is the way I got to be where I am. You should follow these steps. If you do this, if you go to
Ah,
here and do this, there is a better chance. I've made that mistake before, so I can tell you not to make this mistake again. So if you do it this way, and this way, there's a great chance that you're
mm,
going to get to where you want to be, or be even obviously be better than I was able to achieve. And that's been
mm,
the support of every parents over many generations, right? But
mm,
what was happening now was I'm looking at what I had to offer my children, all the frameworks I had to offer, And most of them are career ladder driven. Well, a career ladder, if you want to think about it, is a very industrial model. It's steel, it's
Yeah.
rivets, and all that is rusting and literally withering away. And my child instead is on a roller coaster, right? So today's average career out there is what I consider a roller coaster. Lots of ups, lots of downs. And my philosophy is if I tell you that I'm going to put you on a career ladder and then I throw you on a roller coaster, you're in for disaster because you don't know where you are. But if
Yeah,
instead, right
absolutely.
up front, I tell you, you know what? The future of work, don't expect a ladder. Expect it to be a roller coaster. Now it's like you're walking into an amusement park. You're like, I'm going to get some highs and I'm going to get some lows. I know I'm going to expect this. And I think just changing the framework really helps us with our mental positioning into how we walk into different careers. And for me, mental health has been a very significant reason why I chose to put away the big money of future of money and actually focus on something which doesn't pay me that great, which is future of work.
Yeah,
But especially
yeah.
where it comes to talking to parents and younger people, because mental health has become one of the bigger crises that we're seeing out of the future of work. And a lot of it
Wow.
is that whole sense of displacement, of not having things work out the way we expected them to, but that's because the world
Mm,
is shifting. So
mm.
you
So
asked me,
in
what do I, sorry.
Yeah, so in terms, no, please first finish that because then I might interrupt your phone. Yeah, that what then you are following up on the question I asked earlier. Yeah, what do you see?
Okay. So
Mm.
you asked me what I see about that other people may not see.
Yeah,
I see that the things that we see as changes in the future of work. So right now, I'll just say AI, for instance, probably a big one on most people's radar.
yeah.
These are technical shifts, right? So this is like saying we've moved from the manual typewriter to the electric typewriter. What I'm talking about is the shift that is on the scale of the agricultural era changing into the industrial era.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's an era shift. It's not just a technical shift, it's an era shift. So even though some people talk about it as the fourth industrial age, I actually
Solution.
talk
Yeah,
about it as like it's a whole new era change. And the last time we had an era change at the agricultural era is when we actually switched politics, we switched the way we live, we switched the way we look at time. So let's take time, for instance. In the agricultural era, the way you determined a day is when the sun came up and when the sun went down, because so much of it was feed the animals, manage the farm. The way you managed your year was on the crop cycle, the seasons. And when we came into the industrial era, we had to now work with clocks and calendars. So you can see a
mm,
huge shift in the way we
yeah,
engage with time. And we're seeing that
yeah.
same thing right now. We're changing the way we engage with time. Families, you had multi-generational families. And then when you had the industrial era and the way we lived changed from being the villages and agriculture based to being cities, we ended up with a little family unit, right? So that changed. Education changed. We went from multi-generational careers, you know, for better or worse. I know some of this is really is in a good place, but your career used to be you learned from your father, who learned from his father, who learned from his father. Careers were generational. They had a lot
Yeah.
of depth to them. And now we're not only moving into you can have the career you want, it's now becoming a just-in-time career. I'll do this career for 3 years, then I'll do that career. So we've switched significantly from one side to another. So all of these are changes that are displacements that are much bigger than the technical changes that most people think about when they use the phrase future of work.
Wow. I really like the depth of there are so many angles we could take this through. And I was chatting, and I know we have little time, but I praise that people can ask questions below this video wherever you find it, and then in the future we can have a deeper conversation. Two things come to mind. When you talked about mental health, how it's crucial during this season of work, of how things are changing. And then you talked about the ladder versus the roller coaster. So what I picked from that was someone comes thinking, oh, there is a ladder, oh, I need to carry this ladder, oh, there must be a ladder there. And then they get there, there's nothing. Instead, they find chaos instead of
Yeah.
order. And so that they become disillusioned. They're like, this is not what I signed up for. And talking about mental health, so I hadn't noticed that from that perspective, but also at Success Africa, the entity I work with, we actually starting something called Success Africa Wellness, because and part of the thing is to focus on mental health, because my theory is that people are dying quietly. But I
Yeah.
hadn't noticed that actually one of the reasons is what you're talking about. So that's a realization that it's more chaos than order. What they thought was is not what
Yes.
is. But also out of personal interest, and for viewers out there, now what you're saying links well, at least where I come from, which is Uganda, is that we have parents who insist you must be a lawyer, you must be an accountant, you must be this. And I'm constantly having these battles with parents, advising them, look, let your child do what they want. But then I hadn't even not, I always tell them, okay, they'll be angry, they'll be annoyed, they'll be this, they'll be disillusioned, they won't perform. But I hadn't even boiled it down to the mental health challenge, because now
Yep.
there's mental health stuff. So what would you say to a parent listening to this who feel they must box this child to do what they believe is the right thing, and based on your projections and analysis, some of the things we define as safe jobs, they are no longer existent, or they are on their way out, they are shrinking like you're talking about. So what would you say to such a parent to liberate themselves such that they don't push their children to the wall? And now there's the mental health angle I hadn't even thought about.
Well, I think that's a huge part. I mean, to me, like I said, that's one of the huge drivers behind what I do. Um, the first thing I will say, and this is actually independent of whether we were living in the year 2025 or not, is something I realized when I first started doing videos. And there was
Yeah.
one day in particular, and I remember struggling, trying to get my hair all right. It's like, and I'd started taping. I had all my, I don't have a lot of lighting, but like it was a nice sunny day. I had light coming in at the right angle. I'd set everything up. My hair would not look right. And I kept taping this thing. I started up at 11 o'clock in the morning. And by 6:30 in the evening, I was still taping because the words
Wow.
were right. The message was right, but I didn't look
Wow.
right. And all I could
Wow.
hear in my ear was, "Ah, are you going on screen looking like that?" And it was my mother's voice in my head. I'm clearly over
Ah,
50, all right? And so at that time, and it's funny because on that day, I ended up doing a piece called The Voice You Hear in Your Ear When You're 15 Echoes in Your Head When You're 50,
wow.
all right? And so what a
That.
lot of this comes down to is that the expectations that we set with our children today, with our history, with our knowledge, with our success, having made it as we have as professionals who grew up in an industrial era, under an industrial era education system, an industrial era career path, is the expectation we're planting in the head for our child. Knowing what I know, that is not going to be the case. I mean, even in 2015, I could see that the gig era was coming about, that my child could potentially be having to run what I call multiple revenue streams. So being able to have to do many different things to ensure that they could put food on the table. Why? Because even though they had a job that might be paying them great bucks, the reality is, as we've all seen, tomorrow, without a moment's notice, that company can come to you and let you go. It doesn't matter if you're a CEO, it doesn't matter if you're at Facebook, doesn't matter if
Yeah.
you're a Harvard graduate, it doesn't
Yeah.
matter. The things that you had that used to give you security no longer guarantee you security. All right. So I train my kids to say you have to have multiple revenue streams. And so where this comes about is that you could then be 50 and in your head you keep thinking, "Oh, I haven't made it. I'm not a success." And it's because you haven't realized that you're still trying to get to that perfect model that you want to make your parent happy. And so this is the and so then I came about saying, I happen to live in Canada. We have a really good healthcare system. I'm like, I didn't want mental health to be the crisis of 2050, the diabetes crisis. Like, so the things I wanted to do as much as I could. And so that's essentially why I started coming in. So that was number one. So as a parent, and it's funny because I've since then talked to, I remember one Harvard professor saying to me, she goes, Karina, you're saying 15, but it literally starts when you're 3 and 5 and 6 years old. It's she
I
called
agree.
it the mummy voice. She says, what we
Yeah.
have to do is have parents not saying you will do, but have you considered? Or, just twisting the way you speak, creating expectation as opposed to enforcement. So just setting things up for what work makes you happy, not you will do this. So just changing the way we speak to our kids um, in a way that allows them openness, allows them exploration. That's, I think, one of the most significant ways we as parents can help our children, and we want our children to succeed. There's very rarely a parent I can come across who doesn't hear this conversation and go, oh, okay, yes, I can switch that, right? So every
Okay.
parent I come across is here because they want their child to thrive, right? And I think this is one of
Absolutely.
the easier ways we can do it. The
Good.
second thing
Good.
is understanding that in this moment of chaos, it's as if someone has come in and shredded every map we have. So you grew up in Uganda. We have
Yeah.
Speak and all these other, in quotes, explorers who used to come in and build the maps. But the reality is all the tribes who were there knew exactly where things were,
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
But the maps is the way people created consensus over how to maneuver, what roads to take, where to turn left, where to turn right, etc., etc. So a map is a formulation that comes together when there is consensus, when there is a bigger body of knowledge. But right now, in this moment, we're actually got to think of ourselves as explorers. It's as if we've come to North America for like in the early 1500s. It's as if we've come into Africa in like, in the 1700s, 1800s, and we're trying to make sense. And for our children, that's the way I would encourage us to have them be. So it's not like, tell me what to do next. Tell me which road. So it's almost like don't become a Google map for them. Don't have them think in terms of turn left here, turn right here. It's like, you
Yeah.
come into this area, what are you going to do? Have that explorer mindset, have that creativity mindset. Because as you mentioned before, when you come in and you have an expectation and that is not met, that is when the mental health crisis starts seeping in.
Yeah.
And we're
Good.
trying to not
Good.
have them seep in because once they start coming in, they gather. And so I'm trying to
Yeah.
trap it right at the beginning if I can. I don't know if that's
I
enough
like.
for the time we have, but
Yeah, for it, it does. What I like though is you're giving us a different model to look at the world rather than thinking about myself as someone pursuing a career. If I instead, uh, it's actually an identity shift. You're changing identity and frames here, like how you think about exploration, in that you think let's become explorers. When you're exploring, it means you're open to whichever possibility or probability that there is. So meaning it could be a river, it could be a mountain, it could be a
it
road,
could be a wall. What I
it
love
could be a,
about what I love
yeah.
about explorers is that a
Yeah.
U-turn is a good decision,
Uh-huh.
right?
Interesting.
You come to the end
Yeah,
of a cliff. It didn't
yeah.
take you where you expected to go. Well, you could in the old
Start a new
speak that
journey.
would be a failure, but it's not a
Yeah,
failure. It's like, okay, I've explored. It's not what I'm going to turn around and go back. So we begin to
absolutely.
change our language of success and our language of how we manage ourselves.
And it's interesting you're saying that because now when I look at the education system, for example, in my country, when a child makes a mistake, then there is a big X, they are punished, they are beaten, and all this stuff. And I'm thinking to myself, come on, that's not how life works. That's not how the reality works. It's not a boxed thing that this you must answer it this way. Because like you said, you prepare in the best way possible and things can turn haywire. We talked about 9/11. I was actually there in the US doing an internship and things turned haywire. But what you're saying though, what I'm hearing is beside the exploration, it's also about how do we equip ourselves with those timeless principles and characters that whether it is resilience or creativity or integrity. So when we have those set, we know that those will carry you through regardless of whichever path, whether you're going up or down or flat ground or you meet a good boss, bad boss, doesn't matter, or like the EQ. So I'm sure those are some of the things, listening to you, those are some of the things that now become even more valuable because some people are saying that what we used to call soft skills are no longer soft skills. They are
Mhm.
the real core skills, which are timeless. And I used to read Alvin Toffler, I believe he wrote Power Shift, the Third Wave, and the like. He's a futurist also. I don't know whether he's still alive or something. But I know there's that famous quote of the literacy of the future, those who can read and write, but those who learn, unlearn, and relearn. So I'm just curious as we bring this to a close. What are those? Is there something else that you feel we need to pay attention to, that we need to learn, that we haven't paid attention to? And second, yeah, so what is that? What is that that
Okay.
we haven't hit on that would be universally usable and applicable as we prepare for the future?
Okay. I'm going to do three things here. So number one,
Yeah.
given that a lot of your audience are professional, I would actually ask those that are parents, as you raise your own children, I find, especially in North America, there's been this focus on like helicoptering your children a lot. And
Doing
my
what? Which one?
we call it helicoptering, where you kind of keep it like, protecting them a lot,
Yes, I hear
right?
you. I hear
But I
you.
also say
Yes.
that, are you raising, so in my head, am I raising the kind of child that I would like to manage? Because there's a
Mm,
fine line between creating an entitled person and creating someone who's willing to put their elbow to the, put their elbow in and help get the work done, right? So as a parent, you want to start thinking about that. Secondly, you were talking about rules. There is an interesting thing about rules and creativity, and I know it's almost like contradicts what I was just saying.
yeah.
I always say, like, think outside the box only works if you know that there is a box. So this whole idea that, that we want children to think outside the box when they're in kindergarten, when they don't understand the basics of math, right? So like there are certain conditions that should exist because what we're doing, it's
Yeah.
almost like those are the Lego blocks. Those
Yeah.
foundations need to be solid, and
Absolutely.
then
Yeah.
you can play with them. Just because you have Lego blocks and it has to be a Star Trek, thing, that is not the design I want. I want you to look at the set of Lego blocks and say, how can I repurpose these? So I want to think in those terms. And then on the
Yeah.
third, I'd say in terms of the EQ skills, I actually call them heirloom skills. So when
Call
I
them
talk
which
about
skills?
heirloom, so
Okay.
I look at these and I say, your heirloom skills, your EQ skills are the things that allowed your father, your great-grandfather, your great-great-grandfather, the people centuries away from you, 5, 6 centuries ago. These are the skills that kept them alive. So what were they? They were communication skills. They were community building. They were critical thinking. They were working with failure. So all the things that we have literally been talking about right now, if you think
Yeah.
about them and you go back to 5 generations before you, and you say, what did that person have to have and hold on to that they could survive and thrive and then create a family that survived and thrived that became me? And I always say those people didn't have PhDs.
Not at all.
Okay. Right?
But
Those
they
were
had a
not
PhD in
IQ
mind.
skills. These are
Yes.
EQ skills. These are life skills. And the more that they are used, the more they shine, like a very valuable heirloom that's handed preciously from one generation to another. And I think that that is what we need to return to. We need to start thinking, okay, it's not that, oh, my child went to this university and my child went to that university and got this degree and got that degree and is in this position. It's like, what am I holding on to right now that I can give my child, that they can give their child and go down another 7, 10 generations? Because within 10 generations, I say this for myself, someone in my family is going to be on Mars. And all the rules that exist on Earth are no longer going to be true. What is the thing that is still going to persist? Are going to be those heirloom skills. That is what's going to give that child the ability to survive and thrive in a very, very different space. And that's the same mindset that I'm using right now with my children, right? It's like that same sense of adventure, exploration, like dealing with failure as a success, all
Yeah.
those things, uh, community building, communication skills, as well as IQ skills, using the knowledge that's pertinent in that moment. That combination together is what will allow this person to thrive. And whether it's 2030, 2026, or 23, right? It's like those
Yeah.
are the things that I'm looking for. Like, how do I make sure that this generation survives till then? And I think a lot of it comes down into those EQ skills. It's how we're able to make this transition. Technology will always change. And it's how we manipulate that technology for society's good that allows us to thrive as a race.
That last piece right there, Karina, is priceless. Listening to you, I'm like, wow, this is deep stuff. And I wish we had a whole day talk about this stuff, but hopefully indeed we'll meet again to delve into this deeper. But for an ordinary person, because to be honest with you, it's the first time I'm hearing the word heirloom skills. So is that like timeless skills? Well, what's that? What does it mean in simple terms?
It's a phrase I came up with myself, but so far everyone I've come across
There you
really,
go. Okay, there you go. At least
yeah,
thank God
no,
I asked.
but it's
Then I
it's
was happy.
my it's my reinterpretation of EQ skills. But I think it's in a
Ah,
way that, especially for parents, really brings home our value. Because like I said, when you're sitting there and as you're an industrial era parent, you're thinking, okay, what knowledge can I pass along to this child? Because everything that is in my briefcase is no longer valuable. Every skill that I can, like, if I tell my child, if you go to this university and do this degree, if you go to this professional group and do this, these are the things that are going to be the steps that give you success. That that ladder has broken. I don't have that ladder. I don't have that map. So what can I give them?
this is the question you think I should have asked that I haven't asked you. And if I'd asked you, you'd deliver a lot of value to people listening in or watching this conversation about the future of work.
Really interesting question because I can have so many different answers. Okay.
As always,
I have not lived in Uganda for many years, obviously. Um, but I just published a really interesting profile on someone called Ahmed. We, and I'm going to speak predominantly to the people who are working, or who are going to be listening to this, who are working, who probably are young parents. You're
yeah.
probably in a phase where you're juggling, and then, honestly, this is where the phrase "tilt to your future" came from. It was this knowledge that we have money, energy, and time, but we never have them in equal distribution.
Mm.
So when you're young, you have a lot of time, but you frequently have very little money and you probably have lots of energy.
Yes.
When you're old, you have a lot of time, you probably have money, but you have no energy left, right? And when you probably have none of all, like you feel like you're running on empty most of the time on all three categories, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It it is challenging to think about work as more than, like, it changes how you balance it. One day it's your family, one day it's work, and you're trying to keep all these balls up in the air. I think the thing that I would change is how I think about work, and not purely as a how I get through this day thought process, but what can I take from this day that I can gift to someone in the future, right? Because I think then that changes the lens with which you approach your work as something just to get through. You begin to look at it as something that empowers you, something that enlivens you. And in doing that, that we then blend into this whole heirloom skills, because what you're doing is you're building up that body of work, that body of knowledge. The other thing I would do is understand that today's world is changing significantly and incredibly fast. But honestly, it is exactly what has happened to your previous generations, your grandfathers, your great great grandfathers. They saw this kind of change happening to them under different circumstances. It could be colonialization, it could be a famine. They had equally challenging times to live through, and they did. So this is just our challenge of our day, and you will survive, and your family will survive. And it's in your power to gift them how you survive that, how they tell their story, right? The other thing I've noticed is that there are so many opportunities right now. Most because of what I do, I tend to come into a room and the first question people ask me is, what am I going to do? My job is going away. And my answer is yes, but what else is there? So going back to that
Mhm.
profile, this young man literally was at the first row of the Grammys. Why? Because he's created a music catalog for a population that didn't exist before. He's literally created a new catalog of music. He's created relaxation music for pets.
Wow.
He struggled through it when everyone told him this was a stupid idea, crazy idea, whatever, right? He just got bought out by a hip hop label in LA.
Wow. How much?
Yeah, you
Do you
don't
know?
even want to know.
But a
You can
lot
go
of
do
money.
your own research, but
Wow.
it is literally significant. I mean, but the thing is, he created the music from scratch for a population that none of us would have thought about. So there are opportunities sitting at every corner. And with AI, you might look at AI as a threat. You could also look at it as a gift, as a way of, but obviously he didn't have AI to tell him that this was an opportunity. So don't look at AI as the only way we can see these openings and these little crevices. Trust your human instincts. If you think something might be an idea, go out there and try it. I think courage and agency are the best things you can lean into right now. So
I
that would
love
be the
that.
advice I'd offer.
I love that. I love that, Karina. I mean, listening to you, I'm like, we could speak for the whole day because there are so many angles we could take this. And that's why, if you're listening out there, I knew that this was going to be deep. So it would be good to leave your comments. What questions do you have? What are the unanswered questions you'd want me to ask Karina in the near future? Because I really want you to come back and we talk about this stuff, both
I think
work and
that's really valuable because I don't always see the questions that other people have. I've got like
yes.
I'm as guilty as anyone else. I'm like single threaded like this. So it is
Yeah,
very it helps me to be answering a
yeah,
question because then it helps me marshal all the knowledge I have into,
yes, into
corrals it if
something,
you like.
yeah, into something specific and tangible for people
Yeah, and
in
actionable.
their own context. Yeah, but
Yeah,
the
but
as we wrap this up, the other thing that really caught my attention is listening to you. Like, okay, what can I use that now and help people for in the future? It's like you're looking at yourself as literally a guardian angel, for lack of a better word. That's the image that would come to me, that comes to me. That there are people who look at themselves, okay, where is the opportunity? What do I do? What can I take? What can I get? While for you, it seems to be, what can I create? What opportunity can I create for today and future generation? While other people are just looking, where is the opportunity? And there's nothing wrong with that because we all have to take advantage of opportunities. But I'm hearing that in addition to the opportunities we are taking care of, where you are thinking, how can I create bigger and better opportunities for the future generation? And I find that so refreshing. And
because it
so,
literally is a world of abundance. We've been
yeah,
trained to think of it as one of scarcity, but it
yes,
isn't.
absolutely. I agree with you. And so where can, I know we had talked about your, where people can find you on Substack and the like, where can people find you again? And you can also talk about your book as we wrap this up.
Sure. I think I don't know if that part will make it into the interview. But yes, I've written a book called Contours of Courageous Parenting. I recommend you get it as an ebook. It's on Amazon. Um, and it's about decision making, which and does funnel through the skill sets in there. I talk a lot about the skill sets we need to pass along for to help grow our children to manage the 21st, like this new future of work, 21st century skills. And then carinadesouza.com or LinkedIn. But yeah, I'd say Substack is probably where you're going to see my most recent work and most frequent work. I publish on there weekly. And that's
Okay.
Tilt the Future at substack.com. So
Yeah, and Till the Future is in the, if you look at this video, it's there just after her name, tillthefuture.substack.com. So it's been an amazing pleasure talking to you, Karina. It's
you
been so
too.
and energizing. And I know in future we will have another conversation. Please leave some questions in future. I want to engage Karina around the future of work and also parenting our children for the future, on how they can thrive into the future. So I also know that we are starting a new arm called Success Africa Wellness. So look out for that. And I know I'm sure this is coming out in May. It's an awareness month for mental health. So please take care of your mental health. And listening to Karina here, focus on the work that gives you life, that
Yeah.
that gives you joy, that is in alignment with your purpose and gifts and talents. That's something that at least I've been doing for the last 22 years. So I know what that means, and I've also seen people who have veered off and how it has impacted them negatively. If you need
Actually, there are probably 3 or 4 episodes in my Substack that are specifically mental health, where I was interviewing a panel here for Empire Club of America, which is a very distinguished panel. But yeah, that might also be useful if people are looking to look, and that is specifically about working with mental health in the workspace.
So if you're interested in coaching, go to ethanmussolini.com/coaching. And then you can go to my website, ethanmussolini.com. And if you want, coach, if you want something around human resource consulting and training, go to success-africa.com and follow me on social media. Search for my name, Ethan Mussolini, then on YouTube, LinkedIn, and other social media channels, facebook.com/Ethan Mussolini and Instagram and the like. And please check out Karina. She's a deep woman. She has so much stuff. We just been short on times, just have even overstretched it compared to the amount of time we had. So check her out. She's also on different social media channels. She's also active on LinkedIn. Search for her name. I vouch for her Substack newsletter. I'm a subscriber there. So Karina, may the good Lord bless you and talk to you soon. And for you who's been listening, please leave your comments below. Please ask questions. What do you want me to ask? What do you want, Karina? If she was in front of you, what would you wish to have asked her? Then once I get enough questions, once I get enough traction, then when I know you're interested in this, I'll get her on board and then interview her again. Other than that, God bless you. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, depending on where you are and what time you're watching this.